Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the newest episode of the Introduction Podcast. Today, I'm really excited because we're talking to Tamojit, and I already feel that this episode is going to be very interesting and great. Tamojit, nice to meet you, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nick. Same here. Very excited to talk with you. Myself, I'm a technology leader with a passion for transforming organization, create value through technology. I always give business value before the technology. I started my career in the telecom industry as a developer and went from that side to more like a technology leadership. I lead engineering, software development, digital transformation, and AI initiatives across complex and highly regulated environments. I'm from healthcare industry, so you can understand how much regulated. And today, a significant part of my job now focus on how AI will reshape engineering, leadership, workforce capabilities for the next few years. So that's why my focus area today in my organization.
It's great. It was very interesting for me to have this conversation. And the primary reason is you're sitting at a unique spot. So from one side, your company, your team, you guys are doing very well with AI. Like you're launching the fraud investigation, machine learning algorithm, your the AI governance strategy laid out. Like it's not about pilots. You're not trying. You're already doing something. So from one side, it's very interesting for me to talk because you already know how things are happening and how they should be happening in terms of AI innovation. But on the other side, you are very active and you're actively talking. For example, I've been listening to the panel that you had with the CDO magazine, and you mentioned specifically that right now with all this AI transformation, the bottleneck has really shifted from the technology because like you see it in your day to day to talent. And what you were actually describing was can you tell us more about what you wanted to say by that, about the difference and about the shift that you're observing right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a perfect start. I will say, Nick. I think the reality is that most enterprise no longer have the technology problems or technology gaps. We do have cloud platforms, AI models, data platforms, data business layers, like tools like Tableau, Power BI, the development tools like Claude and everything. It's all accessible right now. I think the real constraint is organizational capability. What often gets overlooked is that AI requires different type of workforce than traditional software delivery workforce. That's why I'm telling you is that you need people who can operate at the intersection of engineering, data governance, governance as a whole, risk management, and business outcomes, right? Those individuals are still little rare, according to me, at least in my organization and my area, I can see that. The other challenge is cultural, right? Many organizations invest heavily in AI platform, but significantly underestimate the amount of change management, upskilling the existing people, leadership alignment, very important. These are all things actually create, I will say, platform productive, right? So technology will quickly, but human adoption really don't see that much scale quickly, right? That is where I think we should be focused on. The leaders who will win over the, I will say, next few years are not necessarily those who are the most advanced technology. I will say those who can build the learning through this organizational change and continuously adopt the new technology, what is coming from, because you really don't know what is coming today. It is so fast, right? So I don't think so leaders can depend on any more technology and not even the workforce, right? So speed learners are the best, I will say, team player right now in the industry.
Can you walk me and the audience through, let's say, how it happened for you in your organization when you just started building toward AI and what you guys have right now? What was the first step that, and like, I'm mostly interested about this people layer. How do you start the journey, the transformation of your people, of your employees? How do you do the change management? How do you, I guess it's like too much of a question to answer, like in a very one short, simple line, but where would you recommend to start? What was your experience?
Yeah, it's a very complicated and heavy question, first of all, Nick. I think traditionally, engineering organization or any software industry or any industry were built around specialization or SMEs, what we see in the industry, right? Developers writing the code, data teams managing the analytics or data, security teams reviewing the controls, auditing the things, business teams is giving the requirements. That's our traditional thing, right? I think after AI came, AI does not work particularly well in those silos.
Yeah.
The most successful teams are far more multi dimensional, right? Engineers need working understanding the data science. Data science maybe need to understand the KPIs or operational metrics.
Hmm.
Product leaders maybe need to understand the security, privacy, the risk governance considerations, and all those things. So, what changed most was accountability. I
Hmm.
think people are more accountable not only on their own work and also the other team work, right? Teams are no longer mainly measured by a delivery milestone. They are more accountable for the final outcome, or you can say business outcome, right?
Hmm. Bottom line. Yeah.
And compliance, right? That's very important. So we have moved project oriented thinking to what I say product oriented thinking. Okay. So AI systems are not finished when they go live, I feel. They
Hmm.
living asset that require continuous learning and continuous changes, right? And that is where I think in my organization also we stood up and say that we will not really look for an AI project. We will look for more like a product oriented thinking where multiple business stakeholders can come and share their components,
Hmm.
that everybody can learn from each other and come up with a more like a product based thing. You can say this is similar few years back when we had with the agile transformation. People sometimes say focus team. There's a lot of names about it, but for me, I always say product oriented thinking team. So that's how it started. It is just not tech stack. It is the people layer, which is very important to success.
Interesting. And if we like focus on the people layer, I think every professional had a few waves in the past where they had to change and adapt because things were changing. So they had to change. They had to adapt with what you mentioned with agile. And in my experience, and I'm sure that in your experience as well, and here we need to dance very carefully on our toes. People tend to protect what they know and be more conservative. It's like aligning with the status quo. You, on the other hand, you were always the person that like kept, pulling forward, trying new things. What was the force that was driving you to do all of this? Because the choice for you was very easy. Just sit down, like protect what you already know, stick to the rules, stick to the basics, and everything's gonna be all right. But still, you're going, you're trying something new. You're clearly trying to find what's the best way how to utilize this potential.
Yeah, you know what? I always say and always view also technology leaders like us, leadership as a transformation role rather than just an operational role. Okay. At least from the technology point of view, it is more like a transformation role. Every year or every few years,
Hmm.
we get some challenges, right? Nick, automation is nothing new. Automation is there the last 20 years, right? Many 10 years back, we went with the agile transformation. 5 years back, we went through the cloud transformation. Now it is AI transformations, right? So it is always changing our role, right?
Hmm.
The moment you think your primary responsibility is preserving what exists, you start creating, I will say, life debt, okay? Or, technical term, you can say technical debt, right? In the form of organizational thinking, not really a code point of view.
Hmm.
So market change, customer expectation change, your regulatory environment change. You see so many policies are coming on the risk, on security and privacy, data governance and everything, right? That
Yeah.
technology certainly also change based on that. Technology also not sitting the same way, right?
Hmm.
What has kept me engaged is the opportunity to continuously solve bigger and more meaningful problems, if I say so.
Hmm.
Every major shift, whether it's a cloud computing, digital transformation, this AI era, create a chance to rethink how value is delivered. I think that is the main thinking. End of the day, we are delivering a value. In my organization, we are delivering the value for the patients, right?
It opens the opportunities. Yeah.
Absolutely. The organization that remain the relevant are the ones who is willing to challenge their own assumptions before the market challenges them for them, right? So
Yeah, because they're gonna be punished first.
exactly. So that's my simple way to answer you what how I transitioned and how I see the technology leadership should transit.
Okay, this makes sense. The thing that probably doesn't make your job easier is that you're operating in a highly regulated environment. And a lot of people in the audience, they also operate in highly regulated environments. So the next couple of questions are going to be super useful for that. So I wanted to ask you about one specific thing. You were super vocal about explainability and augmentation instead of automation as the main principles that were guiding your fraud detection work. But when you work inside like a heavily regulated industry like healthcare or like insurance, where you have to deal with health claims operations, explainability is not just a technical constraint. You also have the legal weight on it and you have the regulatory weight on it. So it's not just that you have to make sure that it works so you're operationally sound, safe and sound, but you also need to be legally safe and sound, the regulatory is safe and sound. So what does it look like when, I don't know, when the model fails? Like, how are you guys working it out? How are you thinking about building something with AI that doesn't, like, being technically good is not enough?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this thing is not really healthcare. And I will give you the a little bit details on it. In a
Hmm.
model fails the explainability test when it can generate the recommendation or prediction,
Hmm.
but nobody can understand why, right?
Interesting. Okay.
Why is really really important thing, and at least in our regulatory healthcare industry, right? Of course you want to know why it got denied or accepted or whatever, right? In our industry also, accuracy alone is not sufficient, right? Of course accuracy is the main thing, but it is not just only the accuracy, right?
Hmm.
If a system making some decision that affect customers,
Hmm.
providers, members, business operation, we need to know why the decision was reached and how the decision got reached, right? That's basically a policy, right? The first people to recognize the problem are often not the data scientist. Trust me. It is typically the compliance leaders, officers,
Poor guys.
lawyers, business stakeholders. They are asking the very simple questions. Can you explain this outcome? They are not technical person. They are not a model expert. They
Hmm.
just want to know how you derive this recommendation, right? So if the answer is unclear, confidence quickly will be down.
Nobody likes black box. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? One thing I always say, forget about anything. First, create trusted innovation, right? The trusted innovation is the true word for any transformation, right?
Hmm.
AI is nothing new on it, right? The standard should not be whether the model is technically impressive. I think the standard should be whether the leadership can responsibly define the decision.
Hmm.
Organization can be will should be very confident how the decision are coming, especially by the model. So that is why I will say the answer is your question is, as long you know the answer of why, you're good.
Okay. What about, I mean, when you have good governance and you have AI in production and they're friends or they're supporting each other, it's a very hard job to achieve. And at the same time, it has the price. I'm
Mhm.
curious what you can tell us about, I don't know, costs of having a good governance or maybe the costs of not having a good governance that will manage your AI.
Interesting, Nick, because I was having a discussion yesterday with the same topic. And I was telling that conversation about AI cost is like now really on the top, right? People already talking about token prices, cost, and all this, right? And it is very focused on infrastructure and licensing, I should say. People are talking, okay, I'm using the token, I'm using the AWS tokens, I'm using the Azure ones, right? Or OpenAI ones, right?
Hmm.
For me, the real long term investment is the governance. Once AI moves to the production, you need auditing, monitoring, validations, model reviews. You need security and privacy oversight. You need a regular security assessment, documents, policy management, lot of things, right? Those capabilities require dedicated expertise, dedicated ongoing investment, right? So, and that is where some of the AI projects also fails recently because it is just not a fancy project to go to the production. what happens after the production, right? That operational strategy, it's very important. And that operation strategy should be documented, or at least thinking of that operation strategy should come before that model go to live,
Hmm.
right? That
Yeah.
is where the fun part is, right? Many organizations budget for building AI, but fail to budget the operating AI. That is where the challenge right now. I think things people are thinking right now. People are, I think, taking a little pause and understanding how to develop and how to put it in, and what will be my, what I say, total cost of ownership, TCO, for an operating AI model. So those are things are growing. As adoption grows, the governance become less of compliance exercise. It will be more on core of operational function. Your
Hmm.
governance is part of the business, part of the requirements, part of the model, right? So mature organization will recognize those governance is not just a friction. It is actually part of your business, right? And that will be the main area where you can have good investment of it.
So it's actually very good because what you just said, I clearly understand that there's two type of people. First type of people, they think about the model, they think about it having it fancy, and the others they also understand there is a responsibility for having this model in production. You can't just think about one side of the coin that once you ship it, you forget it. You actually need to maintain it. And you usually talk to both types of people, and you need them everywhere in management, in operational teams, even like within the new hires that your guys get into the team. What's your best way for understanding that the person like doesn't understand the difference between those two? And how do you usually like, I don't know, explain or show them, hey, actually you also need to think about in production, like going into production? Because it almost feels like a different philosophy for the people that just think, okay, just ship it and forget.
Yeah. And that is the biggest challenge, right? To finding the best talent, right? Right.
Yes.
I think the it is we have to start thinking conversation beyond the models, beyond the AI programming and all those things. I think there are people who only will discuss the model architecture, designs, algorithms are more likely, it's just I will say, like, they're just coming to do the work with the tools, right?
Hmm.
I think talent who immediately talk about monitoring, auditing, drift detection, very important, reliability, scalability, data quality, then incident management after the operation, after the production deployment. These are the main owners. I think these people are the main owners. So when I talk also with the people, I always look for those words, or always look for those experience rather than the technology alone, right?
Hmm.
Because things are changing so fast. I don't think so anybody will know everything, but these fundamental things will be very important. And I think that is where the technological accomplishment will be standing alone, right? Owning a model means taking a responsibility for how it behaves after 90 days, after 6 months, right? After the data change, after the business conditional change, right?
Hmm.
That is where the best output will be. So the mind shift is often difference between experimentational and enterprise business value.
Hmm. It sounds really simple when you're thinking about building a future ready AI talent pipeline. Well, yeah, just get the best people that understand the difference. Like simple enough. But I'm curious, what is the hardest thing in building it? Like, let's say somebody's listening this and all this, and they're like, that actually makes a lot of sense. We would like to start doing it. Where should they start? Or what is the most obvious mistake that they would encounter on their way?
I think the assumption that training equals transformation. Okay.
Mm.
Organizations often believe that if they provide training, courses, certifications, workshops, they have solved the problem. In reality, I can tell you, Nick, skills only become durable when people have opportunity to apply them to their day-to-day job, to
Hmm.
their full business challenges, right? Where they are able to connect with that business challenge, not just through the trainings and certification. Those are very important to know the basics, but the opportunity to work in the real project is the main thing, right? The hardest part is redesigning the work itself.
Yeah.
Just need to create environments where employee can experiment, can contribute, fall safely, If you know what I'm trying to say, like, fall fast, but understand where to fall, how to
Yeah,
fall.
because they will fail fast and then
Yeah.
learn. Yeah.
And build the confidence through the real world application, right?
Hmm.
Future ready talent is not created by training programs alone. There's no way that is possible. It is created by constantly combining learning with a practical experience. The more they do to a day-to-day job with this new way, I think the talent will be a talent pipeline will be created. This is very important, listeners who are on the study mode right now, studying in engineering college. This is the main fundamental thing you need to look for.
Hmm.
Practical experience is not a big project or big organizational joining. A practical experience also can be a startup, a small company joining, and small project to work on.
Yeah,
As
something.
a
Hmm.
practical experience, I think that will be the best way to start your career and best way for organizations, for leaders to create a good talent pipeline.
Hmm. And there's two ways to create future ready AI talent. There is people who are, let's say, already in the job market, and they need to redo something in them. Maybe change a couple of beliefs or just adapt themselves. They need to educate themselves. But at the same time, there's people that are just entering the job market, and you just join the Northeastern's Program Advisory Committee. So I'm curious, when you're thinking about future generations and students that are being in universities, in colleges, in all sorts of educational organizations around the world and in Canada, what do you think? Because my experience with the education, they're a bit outdated. And with AI, that when it changes every quarter, they have to be really quick. They have to be adapting and changing things fast. So, what do you think? Like, what are you doing to help them prepare faster? How these new young people, what they should expect if their education that they're getting can be a little bit outdated and their job is moving and changing every quarter?
Yeah. I think universities or colleges do an excellent job teaching programming
Okay, that's good.
algorithms.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you have to start somewhere.
I will place a greater emphasis on the system thinking, right? Not the technology thinking, right? What is often missing in understanding how technology operates within a broader business ecosystem. Engineers today need to understand a little bit more than the coding, right? They
Hmm.
need to understand the domain. They need to understand the product behind it. They need to understand the maybe the country culture around it, right? Because if I take an example of healthcare, healthcare is different between US and Canada itself, though the
Yeah,
border is very near, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
those type of thinking is important. And I'm not sure how often universities are contributing on this type of thinking, right? Engineers today also need to understand, right, the risk
Hmm.
management, all those things. I think that is the future belong to the leaders who can connect the technology decisions to the business outcomes, not just to do a better coding or writing a software with a zero defect code, right? Technology depth matters, absolutely, Nick. That is important, but the context matters just as much as technology. And the context means, I will say, is the business outcome, right? The context means, I will say, the safe business outcome, or as I said before, answering the why, right? You can answer all those things if you know the background of it, right? And that is where the focus should be for the universities.
Hmm. Well, for the dessert, I think it's going to be an interesting question to close the episode. I mean, you're very persuasive, and I'm curious for the person that's sitting in the audience, a technology leader. They listen there. They are probably stuck somewhere between the pilot and production. Like most of the companies that are on the market right now, they tried something, they did something, something works as not intended, but like they are somewhere, and they understand that okay, technology it can be figured out, but I need people that I can rely on, people that I can pass this on to. So, and they listen to this episode and like, yes, I need to start building my new future-proof pipeline of new AI talent. Um, what are the obvious mistakes that people would make? What are the pitfalls that are already expecting these people on their way that you can tell?
I think, my advice is to make it simple, not to think too much. I know stop thinking of AI is not a good word. People are very worried about AI, but I
Hmm.
will say stop thinking of AI as a technology thing, right? AI is nothing new. AI was there many years back. Yes, it has become very vocal nowadays, but I think the organization that successfully scale AI treat it as a business transformation effort, then that happens to be, I will say, by technology by default, but it is more like a business outcome, right? So focus on more on the business knowledge when you're joining to the new company, understand what company does, how company is creating the value for their customers. So those type of thinking is very important. Of course, technology will be there. And one thing I will say, Nick, is the onboarding process is become much simpler because of this age, right? Because so many tools are available now. So you are not really dependent on going to the through the code and understand what is there, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of tools now in the organization are using to fast track those things, right? So I think you should focus on the time to understand the more like a business, to understand the governance, to understand all the other parameters of outside of software development. There is no shortcut around those fundamentals. I can tell you right now, there is no shortcuts. There might be shortcut to the coding because you have AI to code, but there's no shortcuts around those fundamentals. The
Yeah.
more successful programs are really the programs which actually create the trust, which actually create the value constantly, right? And
Hmm.
create the organizational capability. So don't have that fear that AI is your destination. That is the only thing you need to do. No, I don't think so. And I also say this thing like I feel like the next generation will be much more adaptive on AI than us
Hmm.
because coming with a very fresh thinking, right?
Hmm.
And that's very important. So I will not say stop thinking of AI. You need to think about AI, but I will say stop thinking of AI as just a technology driver.
Well, I will take two things home with me from this episode. One, what you just mentioned. s- A lot of people that I know, they take shortcuts with AI encoding, and then they start automatically taking other shortcuts in the areas where it's not so good to take the shortcuts. So don't do it. And then the second one, when you have the person that is in the college, the best thing that you can do is like do something. And it's always like the best piece of advice. You don't know what to do, just go talk to AI, ask it, tell about the problem, and it will come up with a solution for you what to do. And you don't have to do something like crazy. You just have to walk the first step and that second step and then third step. And sometimes they can be way smaller than you might think. Yeah. How would people that are listening to the episode, when they want to get in touch with you, how they should do this?
The best way is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to answer any this type of advice or any coaching for sure. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me, and I'll be able to catch up with the person.
This is awesome. We will leave your details in every show note. And thank you so much for sharing insights, for coming along for the show. This was great.
Thank you, Nick. It was a great discussions, and best of luck for your future episodes too.
Thank you.
Thank you.